Election day in Chicago only 2 weeks away when voters will decide who the next mayor will be in the city. All the candidates, all 9 of them, squared off again in last night's latest mayoral forum. And the debate had one focus on the issue that seems to matter most to Chicago's black community, including crime. Now, joining us now is Geneva Brown, a criminology professor at DePaul University. Professor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So you're going to help us break down the key issue of crime. I mean, you don't have to go far to listen to political ads or public statements. For several of the candidates, crime is agenda item number 1. But what should voters and citizens be looking out for and listening to in terms of how the candidates approach actual solutions to the crime problem in Chicago?
Voters have to look out for what's important to them. There are communities that are overrepresented by the being victims of crime, and also, unfortunately, producers of those who are committing the crimes. So voters want to know that they're going to be in safe communities. There are voters who are seeing crime spike in areas that they've never seen before. We're seeing crime, unfortunately, being distributed throughout the city. So voters want to know not only will their communities be protected, but also will the city be able to maintain its reputation, safety, and also dealing with why we have the spike in crime, which is basically addressing issues of undereducation, hypersegregation, and also the issues with how the police are handling it.
It certainly is a complex issue, and there's no easy button fix, or it would have happened already. We've reported extensively here at CBS2 about CPD being in violation of the so-called consent decree. Now, explain this, and what do voters need to know about this?
The consent decree was done after a 2015 investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice. They have come in to investigate the various issues of civil rights violations. And basically, the U.S. Department of Justice found that Chicago's police department was using excessive force, even when there was no need for force. And unfortunately, we have a reputation based on the issues with Area 2 Commander John Burge, the torture chamber that he ran for years, and also being, unfortunately, the false confession capital, which means that we had scores of people who were falsely convicted based on confessions that were elicited from the torture chamber type tactics of the Chicago Police Department. So the federal government has come in and try to investigate, understand how to rein in the aggressive police tactics.
Professor Brown, as we were discussing earlier, there's various causes and roots of crime, and how do we get to this point? Obviously, a lot of folks in Chicago want to feel safe. They do not feel safe in their neighborhoods. We've had increased attacks, carjackings, crimes on the CTA, you name it. So what should a mayoral candidate be addressing or focusing on to fix crime, if you had to start with one thing?
I would start with the hypersegregation and the underdevelopment in communities that are producing some of the highest populations of where we see people who are offending. Look at the schools, look at the lack of community norms, and try to address it at its heart. When by the time you get to a child that's 13, 14 years old, it may be too late. But with community engagement, with the activity that knowing that there are jobs and stability and lack of over-enforcement, those are things that we could at least try to do to address these issues.
Professor Geneva Brown, professor of criminology at DePaul University, thanks so much for being with us. Again, we're now 2 weeks away from Election Day in the city. I know a lot of voters have gone to the polls early, but crime, without a doubt, a hot button issue. Thanks for your time.